Now, Executive Suites with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, always glad to have you with us here. And today we're going to talk to one of the better known CEOs, I would say, in Rhode Island, Cheryl Sneed. She is the president and CEO, founder as well, of Banneker Industries. And it's an interesting story. We're going to talk about it. This is a company where you might not know their name, but you almost certainly know their clients, the people they work with, and sort of their role in making the economy hum. So Cheryl, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Ted. Pleasure to be here.
So let's start off with just the basic elevator pitch. What do you do at Banneker? How do you put it?
Sure. So Banneker really is a world-class supply chain management and logistics company. People wonder, what does that mean? And we source, manage, and move product around the country, around the state, and around the world. Many people don't think of supply chain as an industry or a business, but what we do is we make companies better. So whether they're manufacturers, retailers, or anything in between, even service providers like a hospital, we can manage their inventory, buy it for them, make sure it gets to the right place at the right time so that they're never out of stock.
And this is so important to these companies, especially as you have a lot of just-in-time manufacturing and things. You've got to get, if you're, let's say, CVS or Lifespan, the hospital, or whoever, you need that stuff to be where it needs to be right there, but you also need to have your warehouse run right.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really is for all industries. Every industry has a supply chain. So we do business in aerospace and defense. We also do business on the commercial side with commercial manufacturers or retailers of consumer goods. But a great example is just what you talked about with a hospital. And think about healthcare. We all depend on it, whether it's having to go to an emergency room or having to go to an urgent care. And who wants to go, whether it's planned or unplanned, and need surgical equipment or bandages
that could be
and
life
not
or
have it in
death,
stock?
literally.
It could be life or death. So supply chain is really making sure that all the inventory is in the right place at the right time, ready for use. And that happens in manufacturing, distribution, and retail.
And supply chain is everywhere, obviously. Your footprint, actually, I think it's bigger than Rhode Island. North Smithfield is your base, right? You've been there for quite a few years now, but you're in more places than that, right?
Absolutely. So we actually have over 400,000 square feet in Rhode Island alone between our global headquarters in North Smithfield, Rhode Island. We're also on Quonset Point, and we'll talk a little bit about logistics and how that's part of the supply chain. We're in Lincoln, Rhode Island, where actually that's where the company started in 1991. But we've branched out. And to your point, you have to be not only where your customers are, but where your customers' customers are. So we're all the way to the West Coast. We're in California, as far south as Huntsville, Alabama, but we manage and move inventory around the world.
Now, are you also I almost want to say like an ambassador or a go-between between, let's say I'm CVS, just as an example, and CVS, they have all their stores, they have their own network they need to get stuff out to, but first they need to get that stuff from whoever makes it, whether it's Band-Aids or Tylenol, whatever the heck it is. And do you make sure do you do the interfacing sometimes between Advil and CVS or whoever?
Yeah, so CVS would be a good example. We've actually done business for CVS, but they have their own in-house warehouse and distribution centers.
They're getting pretty big.
But as in terms of that example, we actually help customers identify suppliers for their needs, whether or not they're making a product or providing a service. We'll go out and look for the right suppliers for them, we'll vet them, and we'll manage their supply base. And today, as companies are looking at their procurement operations and realizing the cost of having lots of buyers and the benefits associated with that, and many are retiring as baby boomers, they're really downsizing their procurement, but it still has to get done. And so they're looking at companies like Banneker to not just be a supplier, but to be a strategic partner. And we almost are a subsidiary of many of our clients because we're running departments for them, whether it's their procurement department doing all their procurement and sourcing of products, or their receiving department where we're receiving in their products and inspection, doing their quality for them, as well as inventory management, value-added services, and the actual shipping from their facility to the next phase of the supply chain. So we can do it all, or we can do portions of it.
You're ready, whatever it is. So there's a great story behind the name Banneker and how you I love this. And how you chose that for the company. Tell us how you came up with this.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it as short as I can because I could write a book on this, but someone already has. It's Silvio Benini. But Benjamin Banneker was actually a real person who lived over 200 years ago outside of Baltimore, Maryland, at a time where African Americans, it was against the law for them to go to school. So he learned to read and write on his own, was mathematically and inquisitive inclined, and at the age of 16 built the first striking clock ever made in the United States out of wood, brass, and iron, just by seeing a wristwatch on a person's hand in his hometown. He later went on to calculate 7 almanacs, where today we watch the news to find out, or look at our phones to determine what the weather's going to be for the next 7 days. He calculated 7 years worth of weather, and then went on to help in the design of Washington, D.C., under the Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. So, the story behind Benjamin Banneker, and I look at him as the first recognized engineer, and one of my inspirations to get my engineering degree is really that people of diverse backgrounds and cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds can make innovative and contributions to this country in many, many ways. And it really is the background behind the name, but it's also the background behind the culture of our company, where everybody comes in with gifts and with expertise, but together we're stronger and we're better.
And you founded Banneker in 1991, and that's actually an interesting story too, how you came to found the company during the first Gulf War and everything. Tell us that story.
Absolutely. So 1991, hard to believe, it was 25 years ago, but we were a machine shop at that time, and I had worked for a machine shop in Lincoln, Rhode Island, that fell on hard times. It actually closed, and during that period of time, here in New England, utility costs were high, so was workers' comp. It was a union environment, so skilled labor was very expensive, and unfortunately, the company couldn't stay above water. But it also was the start of Operation Desert Storm. And one of the things I learned coming out of engineering, going to work for General Electric as my first job out of college is, the Jack Welch motto was, you never leave a customer hanging. And I knew that even though the company was going to close, that here we were serving many manufacturers that were tied to the aerospace and defense industry, and I was not going to keep them hanging. So I literally did a buyout of the assets, was able to purchase the company. I renamed it after my inspiration, Benjamin Banneker, and I was able to convince our workforce that being a union company was not going to make us productive or sustainable, and we converted to a non-union company. We finished the parts. We actually were recognized by President Bush Sr., who was president at that time, and that really is how Banneker started. But we knew that we would not be competitive nor sustainable in machining. It's a very tough business, and I give a lot of credit to machining companies that exist today because it's really hard to be profitable in that industry, especially in certain industries like aerospace and defense. But we transitioned to supply chain, and supply chain today is a growing industry, but that workforce that started us, some of them continued with us well into moving from contract manufacturing to a service provider, but we've changed some of our workforce as well.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk much more with Cheryl Sneed about Banneker Industries, what they're up to today, the future of logistics in Rhode Island, and much more. So stay tuned on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. We're having just as interesting conversation off air as we're having on air, so we're going to continue to bring you into it with us. I'm with Cheryl Sneed. She is the president and CEO of Banneker Industries. They do supply chain, and we're talking about what that is and why it's a big deal, a bigger deal perhaps over time that we're seeing now. So I want to, Cheryl, a question I always like to ask. We're taping about halfway through 2016. How's business? How's the business climate right now?
Actually, business is good. Just like all the other businesses here in Rhode Island, we felt the recession as well as sequestration, and with aerospace and defense being part of our industries that we support, we saw our customer base change in terms of what they do and where they go after business, and we changed with it. And I think, that's one of the things that we as Rhode Islanders and business owners have to be is resilient. And I've learned that in 25 years. And, part of that resiliency means you change your business model, like we change from machining to supply chain. But some of it also means that you change, what you do, such as supply chain, and you do it better by either expanding your markets, which is global, and that's something that we're doing as well, and you expand your industry base, and we're doing that too. So we're doing all the right things to grow our business, and we're growing it not just here in Rhode Island, but across the country and around the world. And that's good for Rhode Island because as we expand, just like other companies expand outside of their, let's say, hometown, so to speak, you still have to build your infrastructure back home. Mm-hmm. And that allows us to continue to add jobs here in the state, as well as utilize services from suppliers and service providers.
And it's interesting, you talk about expanding and how Rhode Island fits into your business, because a few months back, people saw the Brookings Institution came out with its big report on the future of Rhode Island's economy, sort of what they see as hot spots, and logistics right up there on their list of things that had real potential for Rhode Island. You must have been happy to see it. What'd you make of that report?
Yeah, I was ecstatic. And again, I think the Brookings report, you've heard comments about, did we need this report? Why is it important? And I think it was important because it validated all the good things we have in our state that we either are underutilizing or haven't really capitalized as a state. And, as I looked at the logistics distribution end, it's something I've realized we do, and we do it well. Banneker does it well, so do some of our competitors in the area. But at the end of the day, there's enough opportunity for all of us. And what's great about logistics and distribution and why it's big for Rhode Island, and we've got a facility in Quonset Point, Rhode Island has a trifecta. We've got the ability to bring commerce in, whether it's importing or exporting by sea, because we've got a port. We can bring commerce in, whether it's importing or exporting, by rail, and we have that right next to our facility in Quonset. And we can bring commerce in, whether it's importing and exporting, by rail and by truck. And we've got great road infrastructure. We may talk about our bridges, but I can tell you that, when we unload in Quonset, we can get to 95, we can get to 146 from our North Smithfield facility. We're in Massachusetts at the Mass Pike in 15 minutes. So for our trucks, we can get anywhere that we need to. And Rhode Island really not only offers all of the logistics infrastructure for transportation, but we have great schools that are now teaching supply chain and logistics, from Bryant University to URI, and we have great suppliers, which are manufacturers doing advanced manufacturing to support the logistics industry.
You mentioned trucks, so I have to ask you, are you concerned about the truck tolls that have been instituted or going to be instituted in the state? What's your view on that?
I see the pros and cons of both. So I understand the need to generate revenue, and commerce is a growing industry, so trucks are needed, and they're going to be on the roads, and they're going to utilize our infrastructure, and we're going to have to keep it up. So there is a cost to doing business, but I also understand that it can impact, at the end of the day, the cost of transportation and the cost of goods. So there are pros and cons to both. It will impact us because our trucks move all over the state and all over New England. But at the end of the day, we as a state are moving forward in the right direction in so many ways. I think, just the tax reductions we've put in place, really recognizing that we've got to enforce what we're doing in our educational system, and making sure that businesses are competitive and we have the tools and resources. All these things have to happen, and sometimes there is a bitter pill you have to swallow to see improvement, but I do feel good about where we are and where we're going.
I have to ask you about Amazon coming up the road in Fall River, just over the border there, putting in a big warehouse facility, logistics. How do you view something like that? Is it good for the industry to have them coming in? Is it competition? What's your view?
You know, everybody probably thinks, oh, for Banneker, that's probably not good news because Amazon does logistics and supply chain as well. Well, you know, if you think about it, commerce is trillions of dollars globally. And there's so many different business models associated with supply chain. Amazon is just one business model. And what they do, and they do it very well, is they bring in low-cost goods and they can ship it anywhere at a low cost. And that's why you and I shop online. I'm a big Amazon shopper. And I think it's good for business to consumers. That's their model and they're good at it. For Banneker, our model tends to be business to business. So we help businesses to get their products to market, and we also help businesses to build and manufacture their products. And that includes us having to buy products, and who knows, maybe one day we will be buying some of those supplies or parts or widgets from Amazon. But I think them coming to the States shows that we have good supply chain and logistics infrastructure. We have good material handlers, inventory management. We have great broadband, which is why GE's coming to the industry. And I think, as we just talked about logistics, for a company like Amazon or a company like Banneker, having air, rail, sea, all the ways to move your goods or commerce makes Rhode Island and Southern New England a great place to do business.
All right, we're going to take good timing. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Banneker's CEO Cheryl Sneed, partly about being a path breaker for women in top positions in executive branch. So stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and we are talking this week with Cheryl Sneed. She is the president and CEO of Banneker Industries, a very interesting company involved in supply chain logistics. We've been talking a lot about that. But I also want to talk, Cheryl, about something you've talked about a lot in the past. You've been asked about it often. Still relatively rare to see a CEO who is African American or a CEO who is a woman, let alone a CEO who is both, like yourself. Yeah. First, I've got to ask you, do you get tired of being asked about this? You know, I know it comes up a lot. Do you get tired of interviewers asking about that?
You know, you never get tired because you realize there's still more work to be done. I'm surprised that the question still comes up. And, you know, I'm a big advocate for the empowerment of minorities and women in business and really making sure that our youth see the opportunities to be presidents and CEOs of their own companies. So I spend a lot of time in our school system, whether it's, you know, in the public or private schools or high schools or colleges, making sure that young people get to see that they can do this too. So it's important that we continue to pave the way for young people. And I am seeing that our millennials are very entrepreneurial. They actually are starting businesses, whether they're already still in school or just coming out of school. And I think we need to encourage that because, again, we live in a global society and people are going to buy goods and products around the world. And who better to be offering that than our young people today? Who are going to be our future leaders of Banneker Industries tomorrow.
How much has it changed for as a female and African American CEO compared to when you started the company in '91?
Yeah, so I have to say, you know, with my background as a mechanical engineer, I did not see people who looked like me, whether women or people of color, when I was in engineering school. I now go back to Kreinert at Purdue, where I got my MBA, and I go back to UMass Amherst, where I got my engineering degree, and I see more. So that's a good sign. And I could say that, you know, just in terms of here in Rhode Island, you know, we've got great organizations like the Rhode Island Black Business Association, Center for Women in Enterprise, even our small business incubators are really encouraging minorities and women to get into business and start their own businesses. And I'm involved nationally with organizations that work with major corporations that want to see these businesses do business with them, like the Coca-Colas and the Microsoft and the IBMs. And I'm seeing that women and minority businesses are, and small businesses in general, are doing more globally. And that's exciting to me because I think we all have to look at the world as our oyster and that we should be selling our products and services, not just beyond Rhode Island or New England or the United States, but we should be selling our products around the world, and we should be expanding our business relationships around the world. So I'm just as excited about being in business and working with our team, and I do want to talk about Team Banneker today, 25 years later, as I was when I started in 1991.
And the team, that was actually my next question for you. You are one of those executives who talks a lot about the importance of your employees, the importance of your workforce, the importance of your team. Theoretically, that should be important to every CEO, but you can just tell some prioritize it more. Why such a high priority for you?
So absolutely, you talked about where did the name Banneker Industries come from, and I explained that, but at the end of the day, Banneker Industries is not about Cheryl Sneed, it's about a team. And we have 4 core values, and the first is our team, and we go by Team Banneker. So again, we try not to use the word employees or bosses or managers or direct reports, but everybody in our organization has a gift. They bring a value to the company, and using our tools and our resources and our experiences, as diverse as they are, makes us a better company and allows us to implement our second value, which is customer success. So again, it's not just about one person or two, it's about the whole company working together as a team to ensure our customers are successful. Our third value is continuous improvement, because we don't want to be complacent. The world is changing too quickly. Supply chain and logistics is changing every day, and we need to make sure that our folks are at the cutting edge. So implementing Six Sigma, using continual improvement tools, investing, using workforce development grants in the training and development of our people is critical for our success today and tomorrow. And then our fourth value is integrity. We do what we say and we say what we do. And Ted, not just here in Rhode Island, but integrity and making sure that what you do is at the utmost in terms of ethics is important in the state. It's important in business, and it's all about business relationships. And I'm proud that our team takes those 4 core values to heart personally each and every day, and that's what makes our company as great as it is.
Only about a minute left, so I want to ask you about one other passion of yours, which is our soldiers, active reserves, veterans, and involving them in the company. Talk about that.
Sure. So, at the end of the day, when we look at who our customer is, our customers are the soldiers. We cut our teeth early in the business in aerospace and defense. Today, some of our major clients are aerospace and defense manufacturers producing products used by our soldiers and warfighters. So why would we not support them? So as they were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, guess who had the best supply chain experience and expertise? Who understood logistics? They are perfect for our workforce. So we've actually grown our workforce to include not only veterans, but active reservists who are part of the team now. And we do lots to support them, from water fire to Operation Holiday Cheer, and making sure that they get off on a good start.
All right, Cheryl Sneed from Banneker Industries, thank you for being with us, and thank you for joining us.